Hi everyone, welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami. I'm thrilled that you're here today. I'm excited to paint this wicked painting. I've worked really hard on this one for a long time, so I can't wait to see how you guys do and to get some feedback from you guys. I'd love to know at the end what you thought. Before we get started, I would highly recommend that you go to our website and you snag our paint kit that goes with this tutorial. If you're new to my little paintbrush, we have a paint kit for each of our videos, and it comes with everything you need from a prepped canvas to the paints I'm going to use, the same size brushes, literally everything. So I would encourage you to do that. However, if you're here just to do some freehand work, maybe learn a few techniques, go ahead and watch along and we'll have some fun together. But don't forget, you can always snag a paint kit. It makes this process a lot more fun and a lot easier for you. I want to just go over the sizes of brushes I'm going to use today, just real quick in case you don't have our kit and you're wanting to know what I'm using. I'm going to go with these three today. I've got a number 2 detail brush, which is the best size for details. I have a number 12 flathead. You can see it's flat on top. That's where it gets its name. And this is a good size for big spaces, and it's also good because it's not too large if you're a new artist and you're not super confident in a really big brush yet. And then I have my number 6 round. This one comes in handy for areas that I'm not confident to get with my flat brush, but I don't want to use my detail brush and mess up the bristles while filling in larger spaces. So these are the 3 I'm going to use. I have 2 jars of water. I like to use a jar instead of like a plastic or paper cup because those are a little flimsy and you really want to swish that brush around to get it clean. So I like something a little bit heavier, a little more weighted, and so I go with a glass jar. And I have 2 of them filled with clean water. That way, if my one jar gets super dirty, I need some clean water for some highlighting or for some lighter color mixing, I don't have to go and refill any jars. I have 2 right here. I also have paper towel handy so I can wipe out and clean out my brush with that as well. Okay. Also, let's look at our plate or our palette if we want to be fancy of paint. I like to set them out like this, multiple piles of white. The reason for that is if it gets contaminated in one pile, I can always go to the next one with new colors and not feel stressed about some yellow getting into my blue or vice versa if we're trying to keep cool and warm colors separate. We're using acrylic paint today. It dries quickly, especially for me because I'm surrounded by all of these lights. And so you're going to notice that I'm painting pretty fast. One of the reasons for that is I'm keeping up with the drying process. With acrylic paints, you can only blend wet into wet. And so I'll be moving a little bit quickly to avoid not getting that opportunity to blend. So if at any point you feel like this is way too fast for you, please pause, please rewind, whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. You don't need to keep up with me. You can go at your pace and it's completely fine, okay? I think that's it. I think we can dive right in and have some fun. Let's start with our background. It's always a good place to start. It's usually a bigger space to fill and we can get all those anxious feelings of like touching a clean canvas with paint out of our system. So let's go ahead and mix the color we want for our background, okay? I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to get it wet, okay? Swish it around in my water. I really need that water in my bristles because your acrylic paint needs water, even right out of the bottle, right out of the jar. It is not ready to hit your canvas. You need to dilute it a little bit, okay? So we're going to make a nice lime green, and I'm going to go ahead and choose this pile of white as my light green pile. So I'm going to get a chunk multiple chunks of yellow. You need more yellow than green here, and a scoop of green. And I'm going to start mixing just right into that white pile. Okay, and I'll mix, 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 mix. And at this point, you're going to be able to start making decisions like, you know what, I want that to be more in the lime, more in those warm colors than in the cool colors. So you can get another scoop of yellow. I'm going to turn it this way. I don't want my red to drip in there. Tight spaces here. So I'm going to mix more yellow in there until I feel like I've got the shade I want. You can tell, or you can see I'm pulling white in as well. And I keep doing that because white is our most pigmented paint, which means it gives us the most coverage. Okay, so you want to add those whites. The darker the color is, typically you have to do more layers. So really utilize your white paint. I think this is the shade I want to go for. Okay. Also, your paint will dry 1 to 2 shades darker on your canvas or on your surface than it looks on your palette. So always lighten it a little bit. When you feel like, oh, this is the color I want, go slightly lighter, and then it'll dry exactly the way you want it. Okay, so let's start filling in our background. I got to work around my little clipboard here. I'm going to get right up next to my subject, my hat here, and try not to get in the hat. However, it's black, right? So if I get some of this green into the hat, I'm going to be totally fine because it's going to cover it up. So that's really a great thing about this entire painting is the hair is dark, the hat is dark, and so it's kind of nice. You don't have to stress too much. It's a good way to just like practice your fine lines and getting up close. But if you make little mistakes, you don't have to stress out. So I'm going to use my flat with pretty much all the background. If there's little spaces though that you get to and you feel a little unsure of yourself and your ability to use the flat brush to get in those spaces, grab that number 6 round or another, if you have a smaller brush on hand, grab a smaller brush and get those spots. I would not say use your detail brush because you really want to save that for fine lines. And a couple things happen when we use our detail brush to fill in larger areas. One, we give our detail brush a bad hair day. I always tell the kids, you're going to give it a bad hair day. And you don't want that because then it won't give you details. The second thing that will happen is you'll have a lot of brush strokes because it's not a lot of bristles. And so you'll see those strokes more in your finished product. I'll try and do that little flip there without getting too much green in there. Now I'm painting on a mixed media paper. I do this for several different reasons with our recordings, with the number of times I've painted this piece, for the sake of a lot of different things. We just choose to do our tutorials while painting on this mixed media paper. If you have our paint kit, you're most likely, or even if you don't, you're probably painting on a canvas or a harder surface, maybe with some edges. And in that case, I would encourage you to wrap your edges, go around those edges so that you can have a nice finished piece in the end, and you're not going to have like white showing up as you try and hang this on the wall or put it on a shelf. We always wrap our edges, which I'll show you in just a second what I mean by that. If you're like, you mean wrap your edges? I don't understand, I'm new. I'm going to grab the original piece. The original's always on canvas, but these are your edges. And you can see I painted them as well to give it a nice finish to look. So That's what I'm talking about when I say wrap your edges. Sorry, I almost lost my painting. Almost hit the floor. Okay, so take the time to do that, and you will be glad you did. So our broom is not as dark as the dress and hair, so try not to get too much green in there. Mistakes clearly happen, and that's okay. If you get a big chunk of green somewhere that you don't want or you didn't mean to do, you can do one of two things. One, you can let it dry completely, then put white over it before you go to the main color of that. You know, so if it was the broom stick, then I would paint it white before I went in with my brown. Or if you catch it on time, you can get a damp paper towel, or my favorite is like a Clorox wipe, and I'll just wash it real quick. The Clorox wipe will wash the paint off really quickly because there's alcohol in them, and the alcohol will eat the paint. So those are some tips if you get a little too much paint. When we taught in-person classes, which we did for years, we always had Clorox wipes. It was kind of like the joke at our studio. Like, who has the Clorox wipes? Because, you know, mistakes happen. Okay, we're still working on this background. And for me, I'm getting some pretty good coverage. I'm not going to do 2 layers, which with green paint, you just never know. Green is one of our shy colors, I always say. And sometimes you'll need more than 1 layer. It really depends on how thick you're putting it on, how thin your paint is as you're putting it on. Also how much white you've used, you know, the overall color shade of green that you ended up using. All those things matter. So if you're painting along and you're thinking, I'm not getting the same coverage as her, I want another layer of green, you can totally do that. Just pause this video when I go to the next step and let your background dry, and then do another layer. It's no problem at all. But don't forget that this painting has those fun bubbles, okay? And we're also going to add some white, sort of halo type wisps around the bubbles and around the subject. And so if you're like, I'm not 100% sure on the coverage, but I think it's good, just go ahead and wait till the bubbles are in, and then you could just kind of do some patchwork where you're not 100%. But see, like right here and stuff, it's kind of, you can see some of the surface a little bit, but it's not too much that I'm gonna worry about it. So I'm using the toe of my brush to get in these tighter spaces. You can see I've changed how I'm approaching the canvas. So you can do that to not have to switch out brushes. But again, if you're just not feeling super confident, just switch brushes. Totally acceptable. In fact, like this section right here, I might not be as confident in using my flat brush, so I might switch it anyway. But I like to sometimes challenge myself and like, how far can I go with one brush before I have to switch it? And there are some paintings that I just do the same one the whole time, but not this one. I'm gonna switch to my number 6 round. So that's this one right here. I'm gonna, again, swish it in the water so that you can have that moisture on it. And then I'm gonna fill in this little area right here. Just gives me a little more control of my brush and less stress on where that green is going. I love this shade of green. growing up, this was like my color. In fact, this was the color of my wedding, which, you know, I don't know how I feel about it now, but at the time, this was the thing. This was the thing to do. Okay, so this looks fantastic. We've got our background in. We are going to go ahead, since we've got green on this number 6 round, we're going to go ahead and get the shade of green for the hand and the neck before we go on, just because it'll save us washing a brush. So what I like to do with this is I take the color that I just did with my background. So I'm just going to scoop some of that. You don't need a ton. Move it somewhere on my plate that's not got any paint on it yet. And I'm going to go ahead and darken it up. So I'm going to take some of this green and I'm going to start to darken the shade. I'm going to pull in some yellow too, because I want to stick in that lime family, right? I don't want to veer away from that, but it obviously can't be the same shade as the background or we wouldn't see her hand or her neck, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just keep darkening this shade. And we're just about there. You can always take it and just paint it right next to it like that. And you can see, there we go. There's a good contrast. So I like that. Okay. So we've got our contrasting color here. And I'm going to go ahead and come up to this neck. Now you can tell right away, you guys, because it's darker. You can see the coverage is a lot different. You can almost immediately see that it's a little more transparent than the background. So I'm going to carefully just go over it twice. Again, my paint's drying really fast, so I can kind of do that 2-in-1 thing. That way it's nice and darkened up there. And here we go on this hand. She's gripping the broom here. Comes down and around to this little wrist here. Awesome. And it might feel a little messy for a minute. Don't worry about those things because we have a lot to do. And so I hope you're ready because we have a lot to do. We have a lot of details to put in on this painting. It was one of those when I created it that I was like, oh, I'm still going. I still have some things I need to add. I still need to do this. I still need to do that. And it just kept going and going and going. But it's fun. Okay, so we've got a hand in, or what will eventually look like a nice hand and a neck. I'm going to go ahead and wash both brushes because I just threw my flat in there as I was painting. I just quickly tossed it in there. So I want to wash them both out. I hope you can hear that swish. So you want to put your brush all the way down to the bottom of the cup or the jar, and you want to almost scrub the bottom of the jar. You want to move in the right motion back and forth with your bristles so you're not damaging your brush, but you do want to get in there and really get that paint out. In this particular scenario, it's not going to be detrimental if there's still green in your brush because we're going to go into her dress and her hat, which are both dark. But in other situations, if I was going to go from green to like a purple and I had green in my brush when I went to purple, I would have a problem. It would start to mud out because they're not friends when they're side by side. All right, back to our plate here of all of our fun colors. I'm going to work on a dark charcoal, and I'm going to go to this pile of white and start to mix a nice dark charcoal. I don't need a ton. Sorry, I'm trying to show you and not get too crazy. I don't need a ton of white. I don't need a ton of white. I want to keep my color dark because, you know, it's supposed to be black, but I want to be able to do some shading in there with black and be able to see it, you know, so you want it to have that light in it, but not too light, if you get what I mean. Okay, so I've got what I want here, and we are going to paint in the hat and the dress. They're both the same shade. So I'm just gonna fill that in. And this is where we're really gonna see some clean edges start to happen because I love painting with black for that reason. Because you're just right up close and you're just like cleaning it up. Clean it up. Okay, so I'm gonna get in this kind of awkward pose here and go up like this. You can see that it kind of like stacks, like her hat has that kind of stacking, you know, and that'll really come out more when we come around with these edges that you see that are a little white. They're just the curve that I'm going to do later. Just trying to make it a little more prominent so you could see. I just love her hat. It was a lot of fun to create too. So typically, when I paint, I don't keep my surface upright the whole time. I'm flipping it, spinning it, taking it off the easel, setting it on my lap, whatever I need to do to feel like, you know, I'm not in pain while I'm painting, because posture can really affect your enjoyment of your art experience. So if you're feeling a little bit like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable, don't feel like you have to sit upright like this the whole time. You can move your canvas around. I can't right now because I'm hooked up to all this equipment for this recording, and so I'm kind of stuck the way that I am, but you can move it around. So definitely do that. All right, we're going to come around with this hat. I don't like how that bubbled right there. I think it was just extra water on my brush. Anytime you see like a clumpy situation, just wipe out the brush, start again. Come around this curve here. Yeah, her hat was fun to do. Definitely enjoyed painting her hat. So sometimes the lighting I have will put a glare on what I'm doing, especially with black. Black is one that just picks up a really weird glare until I'm done painting. So if you're feeling that, sometimes you just need it to dry before the glare goes away. So just kind of give it a second and then you'll probably be able to see it better. I'm having a hard time with this line here where her hat and hair meet. There we go. Spin it up. Looking good. Got a little smears going, but it's okay. We can fix that. So there's her hat, the first layer of that. Now we'll come down and we'll do her dress. again, it's nice to just be able to just put these layers down and get that nice clean edge. I liked the pointy shoulder. I really embraced that. I thought that was fun, to give her a little bit of a point. If you see white coming off my brush like it just did, it's just because when I go to load it, sometimes it hits the white a little bit. So you're not doing anything wrong if your brush isn't experiencing that. So don't worry about it. She's got little curves, little like ruffles on her sleeve, just like she does up in her neckline. These are all things that will show up more as we put in those details. Concentration. You can tell I'm concentrating because I stopped talking. I'm just focusing on getting all these little curves right. Come up here where her collar is, and see, we're just going to add some little ruffles there. And of course she has this gorgeous braid. It's coming off her shoulder there. Oh, that's a little too much white in that one. Sometimes I tell people, like, really just let the brush offload however it's going to offload, and it kind of adds some character to your piece, so you can have some fun with that. Then we've got this shoulder here, right across the hair. I might have to make some more paint. I don't know that I made enough. That's always tricky to figure out if you make enough or not, and then you have to remake it, try and match the color. Hopefully I have enough for these last few strokes. Again, if you're wrapping your canvas, I would go ahead and wrap the base of your canvas. Just go ahead and go around the bottom as well. So again, you just have a nice completed piece. I used to tell my students all the time, just imagine wrapping this gift, you know, and if you were wrapping it, your picture would follow, you know, the edges of the canvas. They would go around. So go ahead, the picture on the wrapping paper would go around the canvas. So kind of think of it that way and wrap your canvas. I always got a lot of eye rolls with that, but because they didn't want to wrap their canvas. But I think it's a really important step. I just had to mix my brush into some paint a little bit. Get those hips in, that nice curve, and then down this arm and her little elbow, and then her other arm is kind of wrapped around the front here. So, oops, not that big. That is the downside of painting with black, is that once it's on there, it's on there. Okay, so this shoulder right here gets a little bit tricky. What we're gonna do is we're gonna match it with this one, and then we'll kind of know where to lay the hair. So if you're looking up there and you're going, that looks really wonky, don't worry about it. We're gonna clean it up as we put in a nice shadow and some detail work, okay? So don't stress about that. What we're gonna do next is shadow. So I'm gonna make sure that my brush isn't too clumpy. I'm gonna add some moisture, some water into my paint so it's nice and thinned out and ready for this next step. Because I want to have a long brush stroke, and if my paint is thinner, I'll get that nice long stroke, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to dip the corner of my brush into my black paint. So I have this dark charcoal gray, and then I have that nice black contrast, okay? And I'm gonna take that black contrast, and let me just adjust my original one a little bit so that I can really make sure I'm doing this whole thing justice here. And we're gonna take this corner and we're gonna start to add some shadow lines, okay? We're gonna start up at the top. So I want you to think of like almost like you're doing, sorry, like a smiley face, okay? So you're just gonna connect these two almost like they're cake. It's a stacked cake, right? So like one corner to the next. Again, this might be hard to see with the light shining on it. So just kind of maybe let it dry a minute. If you're like, what the heck did she just do? I can't see anything. Just give it just a second and it will show up. And we'll do the same thing right here. So I'm just going to connect these two. Okay, so I'm shadowing basically the base of each little section, and you can start to see the roundness of the hat come into play. And then we'll do the last section, and this is where her head, you know, you want to have kind of a deeper dip right there to really show that that is where the circular portion is set on her head. Sometimes I even go back and do like another layer to really make sure that part is prominent, okay? So again, as it's drying, hopefully you can see what's happening there. You're using that edge. We call this floating because you're floating one shade into the next or one color into the next. So instead of having like this really harsh line, you're floating them into each other, okay? Now we're going to do this around the rim of the hat. We don't need to worry about these sides at all, but I do want to do it around the rim of the hat just to kind of add some extra fun, snazzy details. It's also, again, a good opportunity to clean up some edges if you're feeling like you still need to do that. And don't feel like this process is a one and done stroke. Sometimes I go over multiple times when I'm doing this to make sure it has a nice flow to it. So if you're like, oh, it's not looking right, go over it and over it again and over it again. It's really okay to do that. A lot of people think they're doing it wrong if they're not touching the canvas once and it's like beautiful. So understand you're going to have to go over things more than once, and that's okay. If you can see these little spots I got into my green a little bit, you can just wait till that's completely dry and then we'll fix it. We'll clean it up in the end. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that whole technique throughout her dress, okay? And really start to give some detail to this dress. First, I'm going to work on this sleeve over here. I'm going to give this sleeve some of that detail. We're going to go down with that dark edge and around the elbow, then back up the other side. Again, you can flip your canvas around. It's really hard to do it in one position the whole time, but it's doable. It's just tricky. Now we're going to do the line that separates, you know, she's holding her broom. So we're going to separate these two here. And we're going to come, let's see, how do I want to do this? Down this way or up this way? I think I'm going to go ahead and come down this way. So I'm going to come around the shoulder and I'm going to shape her arm. See how we get that shape right there? And give her that puffed sleeve. Nice. Nice, nice. Looking good. Sometimes I have to just like stand back, see what I'm doing. How's it going? How's it going? Okay, now we'll come over and we'll do this sleeve. And I kind of want to keep him, you know, this one's a little more pointy than that one, so I might like help this guy not be so pointy. Sometimes when you're doing the painting, you're not, you know, you lose some of those things as you're painting along, and you gotta have to try to go back and like even it out. So we got this arm, same kind of thing. I'm gonna come in here and give this little section right here. And then if I feel like this is missing a flow, like I said, you kind of want to, you can go back and give it more. Now I'm actually gonna rinse out my brush a little bit because it's had that color on it a long time, so it's starting to get sticky. It's starting to seize up, kind of like, I feel like I'm painting with Elmer's glue now. And I'm just gonna reload. So I just got water on my brush, getting that moisture into my paint, mixing it in there, and then I'll just start. Same thing, dip half of it in black, or like a quarter of it, third of it in black, however heavy you want these lines to be. And then I'll just start going again. Depending on where you live, the climate, the heat, the weather, all that, that'll determine like how often you have to add water to your paint. Okay, so let's work on our little collar here. We want to give this some little detail here. Okay, and now we're going to do that back and shoulder area, and that's where we're really going to figure out where the heck this hair is supposed to lay. And so what we'll do is we'll follow this one, we'll just kind of curve it up and around. Okay, go straight through there, and then we'll start to curve down. Okay, you can see where some of this dress is going to get covered up by the hair when we put it in. So we're just trying to match each side together right now, and that looks like it's where it needs to be. Okay, and just kind of match that up the best you can, and then when we come in with our dark hair, we'll clean all that up. Okay, so there's that portion. And now we're going to come down and we're going to give her a nice round the back here, following those shoulders all the way down. You can really see like that detail coming through. I just love it when these steps start to work. You're like, oh, there, I see it. It was just a black blob. Now I see it. Go all the way down her dress. Curve back up. She's looking snazzy. We'll do the other side. And that's always tricky because you're like, how do I match the sides? Do the best you can. We have to remember this is hand painted. I feel like we're so used to like these perfect graphics and prints nowadays because we could just get perfection on the computer. That we've lost sort of this beauty of the hand painted, you know. I always tell people it's gonna look like you hand painted it, and it's supposed to. So we're gonna do the best we can to make sure that she looks like she has even shoulders and a back, but in the end it might be a little lopsided, and we can just have a good laugh about it because we're here to learn, we're here for the experience, and we're not attaining perfection. Not tonight. Not tonight. This movie was so good. I loved it so much. I'm thrilled for the next one, or the part 2, I guess. I'm just trying to get this right, guys. So if you've already finished, I'm really happy for you. But I'm going over it again. All right, I think this one's just a little pointier than that one. So I might just come over here and maybe just add a little more of an, no, I need more gray. Things we worry about, things I worry about that probably don't matter, but you know, I really want it to look good. All right, there we go. I feel better about that. Okay, friends. Now we're going to separate her like suit jacket. She's got like a little suit going on here. Lost a little bit of waist right there. I think I'm going to grab my detail real quick because I really don't want to lose her waist. And I'm just going to get my detail brush and I'm just going to curve it in like that. So I just like that defining waist. And I really, really don't want to lose that. Okay. Which you can do at any time. Grab your detail, clean something up that you're like, I can't, I need that. And we need this cleaned up before we put in that jacket line. So there we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and get that V going on right here. You guys would die if I showed you the first one I did. It was bad. It was bad. My daughter was laughing about it forever. I eventually nailed it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a nice V here. We're going to try and center it as best we can, and then we're going to go back and forth on it, okay? So I think I want to go a little deeper. And this was a line that was already on your canvas before we started. So if you wanted to keep that line in there, you could have just painted around it, but I hate painting around things. It's like not what I like to do. So I didn't do that. But I guess I'm telling you late, huh? I'm telling you could have done it when it's too late now, but the biggest thing was that with this particular step is we just want to try and get it centered. And that's not bad. I don't feel like that's bad. It's a little more curvy. So I might try and do a little bit more prominent V shape here. You know, come down and really like V that up a little bit. But it's not bad. Yeah, there's a little more of a V. Okay. I'm just gonna lighten this gray up a little bit. It got darker. I think I had black on both sides. I think I sort of lost what side had my black on it and what didn't. So I kind of lost it in there. Bring it back. Back and forth. Work on it till you're happy with it. Or as I like to say, till you're 60% happy with it, because 100% usually doesn't come, especially like the first day. I usually like my paintings a lot better on day 2. This side of her dress is growing, guys, at a really rapid it just keeps growing. I'm gonna have to. That's what happens with some black paint. You just keep going. I'm like, I gotta even it out. Wait, it's bigger again. I gotta even it out. It's fine. Okay, so pretty sure we've got this section done. And I can live with it. Hopefully you guys are feeling the same way. Hopefully you guys are feeling it's gonna be okay. So we've got her details in pretty well now. As far as those main lines, we're gonna add some more. We're gonna jump up to the hat and then really have some fun with that right now. But before we do that, let's go ahead and put the first layer of her hair in so that it can dry, because it is gonna take more than one coat of paint. I think it might, or at least we want it to dry before we can put those braid details in. So I'm going to get my number 6 round. We're going to make a beautiful dark, almost black hair, but we have so much black going on, so we want to separate it a little bit, okay? So I'm going to mix some brown and black together right here, but I'm going to keep it on the black side, okay? So not a ton of brown, more black, but as we add like the light into the braid, the light will start to pull that brown in a little bit more, and it'll look different than the dress. And that's really what we want the most. We don't want it to look like the same shade as the dress. And you can see that right now. You can see we've got that nice rich brown. Actually think I'm going to add a little more black to it because that's a little too brown for me. I really want to, like, this is black hair, you know, but we want it to be a little bit distinct from, obviously, the clothes. Otherwise it would just start to look like a black blob of everything. We've got to have some contrast. And this is again where we can really play on that braid, you know, that first bump of the braid not going that way over the shoulder, and then the second one kind of being more in front. There we go. And we're just cleaning up that back a little bit so we don't get confused. And same thing as I've been saying the whole time. You know, you can switch brushes. These areas are small enough if you wanted to jump into your detail brush, which I will do for the little curve on the bottom. You can. These areas are quite tiny, and so that's okay. Ooh, she's coming together. I'm going to hop over to my detail brush to get this part of the braid, the little flip out there. And you can get as pointy as you want on that. You can add little wispies of hair. This is your painting. So you can do whatever your heart desires, right? Best part of being an artist is no one can tell you what to do with your art because it's yours. Well, I have my detail brush out in this color. I'm going to give her a little wispy, just one. That's how brave I am. Just one little wispy is all she got from me. But it's a fun wispy and I love it. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put in some of our first layers into our broom stick and our the top of our broom. I'm just thinking hay because that's what it looks like for me. But let's go ahead and make sure our number 6 is nice and clean. Okay, and let's go ahead and make our broom handle color, which is going to be a nice deep brown, but we want a contrast from the deep, deep brown of her hair. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get some brown and white together because I do want to add that white, and then just a touch of black. And you just want to kind of start mixing it together until you feel like you found like that perfect shade of brown that speaks to you and you're feeling good about it because it's your painting. You can even put in a touch of yellow if you're feeling like you want to bring in that golden color. I think I'll just stick with a nice deep brown though. Let's see. That's looking pretty good. And we're just going to go ahead and just paint straight down with this broom. Okay, and we're going to start it just right in here. We're going to go down. You don't need to worry too much about all those like bump areas. Those are going to come in to play in a second. So don't stress about like whether those are painted or not. We are not concerned right now about that. And then we'll come down and do this part of it. And again, if you want to wrap that down around the bottom of your canvas, you can. This little part, I'm not going to be able to get with this brush, so I'm going to grab my detail and get in around that sleeve. Just that teeniest part right there. Perfect. Going to let that layer dry. Rinse our brush, and now we're going to make the color of the top of the broom. Okay, we want a nice hay yellowish color. So let's see where I have room on my plate. Let's just do it like right. Let's just do it right in here. Right in here, okay? We're going to take some of our brown and we're going to start mixing it. Oh dear. We're going to start mixing it with some yellow. Okay, nice. Mix, mix, mix. And then let's take some of that over to some white. Start marrying the two together here. Getting a nice light, like this is a good color to start. Maybe add a little more brown. My plate is insane right now. It is insanely full of all the colors. Okay, so I think this is the shade I want to start with. We're gonna add lots of layers, so it doesn't have to be like super spot on right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and fill this in, and I still have my number 6 is what I'm using. So I'm just going to fill all this in, wrap it around the top if you would like. Come down here, and right above the rim of her hat, we're going to do this little like bump here, which is going to be really kind of tricky to see. Just kind of fans out a little bit. I'm going to add some white on my brush to really indicate what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of adding a nice curve right there. And then I'm going to just kind of jot it down. So a nice curve, and then it goes back up into the broom. Okay. Needed some white to kind of indicate that curve there. Get a little more prominent so you can see it, and then fan your broom out. There we go. Looking fantastic. Let's wash that out. She's coming. I'm going to reload with my broom handle color. Get that on there. on my number 6 round still, so I'm going to reload with that. Give this another good layer of paint. Don't worry about that hand. We'll come clean it up in a minute. All in time, right? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight one side of the broom handle by putting white on the corner of this brush that's loaded with brown, and I'm just going to kind of scuffle it down this side. Okay, so just adding a bit of light to our broom stick here. There'll be more shadow in there, so I don't want too much white right there. But we're just adding some light, which is really super important in all paintings. It might not be the funnest part, but we're going to add light everywhere. I say it might not be the funnest part because that was the big complaint in every class I did. It's time to highlight. Miss Cami, do I have to? I would say, well, in my opinion, the highlights wake up your painting. So I would say yes. Always, 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 if you have the opportunity, highlight your painting. There we go. Nice light going on there. And this broom is going to really come together in a minute. It's super, super fun. Okay, let's go back up to our hat. I'm going to put some black on a detail brush, and I'm just going to clean up the edges of the hat right here. We didn't float those, remember? So I'm just going to kind of clean them up. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. Just a little cleanup work. So it kind of encloses it a little bit. And now I'm going to make a nice light gray with black and white, still using my detail brush. I want to thin this out with some water. So I dipped my brush in water. Make sure this is nice and thin. I'm going to add a little stack detail on the hat to really kind of pull that out, to make a statement with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow this smile on our hat. We're going to go underneath it though, okay? So just take your brush and as gently as you can, go underneath that smile there, okay? And then as you come around the other side of the hat, we're going to do this like curve. So it indicates that it's going around the hat, right? Do the same thing over here. That one's kind of coming off the canvas a little bit, but it just adds a little bit of fun detail and makes that like curve happen in the hat. We'll do the same thing right here. So first I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to make a smile right underneath that shadow. And then I'm going to curve around. So it's gone around the front of the hat. Just like that. Same thing over here. Curve it around. And if you get a little bit, you know, if it kind of comes into the main hat area, you could put black on your brush again and just kind of close that off a little bit. If you feel like it's getting a little too close to it or whatever. Okay. Looking fun. Looking fun, fun, fun. And you can add so many more details to this hat, however many you want. It's pretty detailed in the movie, so you can really get crazy with it. This was about where I left it just so I could feel confident that everybody could be successful with it. This is just a fun little detail to give it this curving look. Stacked. I just love how it looks kind of like a cake. Okay, fantastic. Guys, believe it or not, we are on the home stretch. I know it feels like you've been painting forever, but we're getting close. Let's go ahead, go back to our broomstick, and let's put a fun vine going all the way down the broomstick. And the reason why I did this is because the actual broom in the movie is vines. And I wanted to play off that idea without really complicating it. And this is where I got. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and lighten a little bit the brown we used for the broomstick. So I'm just going to add some white. I want it to contrast a little bit, not too much. I don't want white, but I am going to bring it, contrast it against the main broom handle. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do these kind of curvy S's that are going to start, go around the front and then stop. Okay. So you're going to, again, go around, and that's what these little curves are on your surface. If you have our paint kit, you are getting these curves in there to help place where these little twisty vines are, which is super helpful, right? I love a good pattern. And then this one just kind of peeks in here. And then we start back up again. Curving all the way down. This is the same kind of concept we did in the hat, making it look like it's going around. Super fun. Absolutely love it. It's a fun detail that I think you'll enjoy doing as well. We'll let that dry a minute. Let's put another layer into the top of the broom. Why can't I think of what to call this right now? The hairs of the broom bristles. After I do this video, I'm going to think of it. But, you know, I've been trying to think of words the whole time I'm talking. I can't think of words anymore. I want to do another layer real quick. Really pop that out. Same over here. Pop it out. It's kind of hard to do around the hat, but, you know, we do the best we can. There we go. Fabulous. Let's do this braid. I'm excited. I'm excited to do this braid. I'm going to use my number 6 round, and I'm going to load it with my hair color. Okay, I'm going to try and flatten it a little bit as I do. Okay, and then I'm going to put a corner of white on my brush. Brush it through a little bit. And I'm going to start putting in that light that's going to really shape my braid. Okay. Actually, I'm going to lighten some of this color. Sorry. Let's lighten some of the brown. I forgot that I did that because the white was a little too strong. So here we go. I'm going to take some of the brown and lighten it. Some of my hair color. So I'm not using a stark white. Okay. There we go. That's better. The white against it is a little too bright, and I just noticed that. I finished this painting just a couple of days ago, and I changed it so many times. So I think I'm still trying to remember. I'm going to go ahead and just cover that with the main hair color. And let's try that again. Okay, so we're going to put our hair color on our brush, dip the corner in this lighter brown shade that we made. And now we're going to start to shape in our braids. I'm going to do a couple of main strokes here. These strokes are going to come around and then just sort of down the center. Okay, so I want you to think of like coming around and then shooting down the middle of your braid. And these can really be as like prominent or light as you want. You can have them really thick, really standing out, or they can just be super light. It depends on what you like. I like to see them, but I don't like it to be too much. Again, I want to keep with her nice dark hair. I just want to indicate that there's a braid here and there's dimension to the hair. So now I'm going to start to work down the braid, which is going to be kind of like they're curving into each other here. Okay. And this is kind of fun. You can, oh, shoot, I'm sorry, I knocked that. You can make this a really tight detailed braid or a nice like loose one. You kind of have to mess with it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. You kind of, it's not like a one and done situation. You kind of have to give it some attention. But we're just gonna do some curves and some dashes. This one's just kind of barely coming over the shoulder. So just mess with it a little bit. You can see I'm curving in and then adding some little detail in between. And then down here at the bottom, I just want to add light. I'm just going to get the corner of my brush in that light brown and just add light down here. Grab my detail brush and get my little point back because I really like my point. There we go. Fantastic. And that's her fun little braid there for you. While I have my detail brush, let's go ahead and come back to our little twisty vine. I'm going to put some white on my brush. I'm going to highlight really lightly the top of my little curves. Just the lightest of pressure. This kind of just adds, again, another dimension. Some of them will be more prominent than others, and that's okay. And then I'm going to go to this like dark brown that we used for the hair, and I'm going to go underneath the little curves with it so that I have really prominent vine going down. Added water to my brush just now. It is starting to get thick. All these lights. Coming all the way down. Super light, not a ton of pressure. Yes, that is super cool. And you can take some of that dark brown, kind of go down this side, the opposite side of where the light highlights are. You can kind of darken it a little bit, which is fun. Just nice and dark. And this is an opportunity too, if you have some little white sections that didn't get fully covered with your vines, you can kind of just clean up a little bit. It's just a broom handle. Nothing to be worried about, scared about. Awesome. Okay, let's hop into our really fun broom, the top of our broom. Using our detail brush, the first thing I'm going to do is go into that original color and I'm going to add some wispies. The first one's going to come out and just pop right there. And then I'm going to have two more. One is going to come up quite close to the top of my canvas. And it's going to like shoot out here. And the other one's going to come a little lower and come just right in here. Okay. Now those are kind of tricky to see right now because it's fighting the green background. But as we do our layers, it'll start to show up. Okay, so now we're gonna do some dark and some light. We're gonna switch between like this original brown we started with before we went to white, and we're just gonna start to add like hairs, okay, into our broom. Broom hairs, maybe that's the word I've been looking for. And you can go up motion or down motion, whatever is more comfortable to you. But you just kind of start to curve these in. And you start to kind of build, you know, this shape. Shape this broom out here. And the center of the broom, I just kind of shoot up the middle, and the sides I like to curve it down. And when you come down to this section, start to curve it on its own. Down a little bit like that. And you can come back to this main color and we can lighten it. I'm not washing my brush in between at all. I don't need to because I'm working in the same like family of colors here. But I'm just, you don't want to ever like totally get rid of one particular shade. You just want to start complementing each other as you go. And then you can go out to these little wispies, sort of bring them in a little bit so that we can see them more. That one I came in a little too much. But you know, you want to be able to see them. This broom wraps around the top of your canvas, so try and bring those broom hairs, is that what we're calling them, up and over the canvas. Put these little guys in here. Nice. Okay, I'm going to work with some just brown too. Maybe add a little white to it, but I really want some dark in there too. So I'll get just some brown in there. And you can keep going like back and forth with this as long as you need to really just find that fun, perfect broom. I actually just love this part. I think it's super fun. It's a good way to practice those really little strokes too. practice those nice fine lines. You want to come over and add a little dark in here too so that they can kind of see these ones that are getting lost. Super fun. I also like to just add straight white to these too, because that just brightens it up too. And I'm trying to find a spot on my crazy plate to do some just white ones. I don't want to overpower, so I'm going to be really gentle with just my white ones and come in really carefully and just kind of just nice and easy, not too overpowering. But again, adding light. Isn't that fun? I just love it so much. And then also some down here like that. Okay, you can keep messing with this really as long as you want. Until you're happy with it. Or at least semi, right? I am going to move on, and I've got this clipboard, so it kind of like goes over the top here, which is another thing to consider. Like, you can wrap this whole thing around the top if you would like, and really get more of those lines up in the top of the canvas. I'm kind of stuck right there, but you can keep going and going and going. And then we're going to close off our little wrap around there, and we're going to use the same color as our broom handle to do it. So we're going to get that brown, and then you're just going to do like a smiley face as we've been doing the whole time. Get some white on there, kind of blend in a little highlight just right there. She's looking fab. All right, let's work on these hands and neck a little bit. Let's see here. We want a nice dark green to kind of enclose these hands. So I'm just making a nice dark shade here. Touch of white. I still want to stick with the lime theme, right? But I want it dark enough that I can just kind of come in here and sort of give this, I think I need more yellow in there. And you can blend these with, you can use your number 6 and kind of do a little bit more floating, but I'm going to come through and float with some highlights. So right now I'm just going to kind of do some lines. Trying to find that right shade that it's not, you know, it's got a little lime to it. There we go. Because the green we're using will actually pull turquoise. I'm going to come and pull this down like that, curve it down. Anyway, the green we're using will pull a turquoise color, and so that's why sometimes it feels a little cool instead of warm. I'm going to put a little of my background color on my brush and clean up this thumb a little bit. Sometimes we lose it in all of our paintings, all our little adventures here tonight with our wickedly awesome painting is what we're going to call it. There we go. Okay, so we've kind of distinct that a little bit. Okay, now we're gonna do our highlights. So I'm gonna rinse my brush, I'm gonna get it in my clean water, I'm gonna run my fingers down it. So I'm squeezing a lot of the moisture out, but I'm keeping a good amount of it so that I can highlight with water and it just kind of fades into it a little bit. And I'm gonna dip my corner into that light gray. And let's start up here with the shoulder. And come down and just kind of wisp it away like that. Isn't that fun how it just like, the stroke breaks so beautifully and I love it. And we'll come up in the sleeve and we'll give a little curve. And then we'll come down and do the same thing, kind of wisp it. And you can make these highlights as prominent as you want. So if you want to go really thick on them, you can totally do that. Or you can just keep them nice and thin and simple. It's just up to you. But it definitely does brighten your painting. This one I want it a little more prominent. So I'm going to come back and just go over that again. There we go, just like that. And then we'll come over here and do this side. Not as highlighted, it's just a little less. Just focusing on the elbow and the shoulder. Okay, we'll do the little hips here. Anytime you feel like your brush is getting dry, just add a little bit of water to it and keep going. Let's go ahead and do just slightly above the V here. Add that little detail, and then we'll come up around the back, curve up and around like that. And you can go over this more than once, just like everything else, and give it just an extra little boost. Come up in the collar, give that a little bit of attention as well. Some of these smaller sections can be tricky to do with a big brush, so if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, that's okay. And you can even just omit certain areas. You could say, I don't want to highlight that area, that's too scary, and that's fine. We're going to come up in the hat, and we're going to give just a very slight highlight. I'm just going to come up, and then I'm going to curve down and try and like pull it away a little bit. Just like so. And if it gets a little heavy, you can add some extra water on your brush. You can just kind of brush it through like that so it doesn't feel as heavy. Okay, nice. And then we're going to do the rim of our hat as well. I'm going to curve down and around. Then we're just going to stop, end it, and do the same over here. Just like so. Oh, she's so fun. I love her. She is such a good time. Okay, you guys, it's ready, or it's ready. We are ready for our bubble. So, you can do a couple of things here. You can, oh, we didn't highlight the hand. So let's just take our damp brush with a little bit of white, just straight white, and we're just gonna do a highlight in the hand here. I don't know if I want to do the thumb. I think I just like it like that. And then this little area up on the neck. There we go. So you can do this one of two ways. You can get some chalk or a watercolor pencil, like a colored pencil, and you can put circles throughout your canvas where you want your bubbles. Or you can just freehand it if you're feeling like super brave. Okay. I'm going to freehand it, and I'm going to place them exactly where I did in the original. You can do that too, or you can place them wherever you want. Here's the one tip I will give you. Don't over bubble your canvas, okay? Remember, the star of the show is not the bubbles. And so make sure you're really focusing on not covering all the work that you did. And also, as you're doing bubbles, remember some of them stick together. They're floating at different heights, and they're all different sizes. So kind of have fun with that too, okay? So I'm going to get my brush damp the same way we just did highlights, except I'm going to use straight white, and we're going to circle in our bubbles. Okay, so damp brush, white paint on one corner of my brush. And now I'm going to come up here and start with a bubble right here. This is a nice bigger one, and it's kind of coming off the canvas. And I love to do ones coming off the canvas. You see how I'm going over it multiple times, and it's starting to fade out. The edge is staying pretty prominent, but it's also fading out towards the center, and that's what you want, okay? So you want that moisture on your brush, so keep dipping it in water as much as you need to. Then I have another one that's just right up here, and I'm gonna try and hold my brush down as long as I can and do a circle, but I might have to pick it up, and that's okay. And these bubbles are overlapping. And I think you should have overlapping bubbles because it's really fun. And now I'm gonna do one that's touching the hat. And of course it's in the foreground. This one's a little bit smaller. That's my goal anyway. Circles grow, so remember that. And here's a trick, or a tip I should say too. This circle is definitely growing. I might have to rest my palm on here to regain control of this one. A tip I will give you is, as you're painting, if you have something on your canvas that you're like, I desperately don't like that particular spot, put a bubble there. If it works, if it's cohesive and it lands right, just put the bubble right there. I do that all the time when I'm painting trees and grass and flowers. I'm like, we're gonna put a flower right there because I don't love that spot. Okay, down here, we're gonna do another sort of layered bubbles. I'm gonna do one right here. Too much water is also a problem, so you wanna make sure your brush isn't dripping like this is about to. But it is fun to kind of have that fade away happening with your bubbles. So I like to utilize the water. And then we're gonna have a connecting bubble right here. And this one can get bigger. See how I'm planting the brush and then just kind of curving around, trying not to lift it if I can help it. Then we have a little one coming off the page, off the canvas right here. If you notice any of your bubbles getting too light, you can add more white to it because you don't want to lose it completely. Then I have a little one just down here for fun because I felt like I needed to balance it. Okay, aren't these fun? I love bubbles. You guys are you're gonna love these. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other side of my canvas. I have a nice big one that's just right here on the edge of my canvas. Nice and large. And then I have one coming over my broomstick. Yeah, you can cover, maybe you don't like the way part of her dress turned out. You can put a bubble there. Maybe part of the braid is bugging you. You can put a bubble there. If it balances out the painting, okay, you can put a bubble wherever you want. If it's not cohesive with the painting, like if it's not really a good balance, then that's one thing. But if it's a nice placement, then you can do it. Okay, we're gonna put one right here. And then we're gonna go up and do one coming off the canvas right here. I could paint bubbles all day. Bubbles and palm trees. I think they're so fun. This one's growing though, as I sit here and try and make it into a circle. It's growing! And then we'll do one right up here, kind of in between the broom and the hat. Feel free to put some on the hat. I know the hat was a little tricky, so you might just not be feeling super happy with it. You can add some bubbles in there. Okay, so that step is done. Now we are going to make some light pink and light yellow to add in our bubbles. We're going to try to anyway. As I'm looking at my plate, I'm realizing that I don't have a ton of space here. But we're going to make it work, okay? So I'm going to take some white and make some pink with my red. And the reason I chose red instead of just having pink is it just was popping a lot more. And believe it or not, I add a touch of yellow. Oh, that had green in it, but I think it's going to survive. I add a touch of yellow and it just made the right shade of pink coming off of the canvas and against the green background, which it fights a little bit. So you kind of have to layer that up. So this is the pink I want. In my little tiny space, rinse my brush again, go back into my clean water, repeat the same step. Clean water, pull your fingers down like this. Look at my hands. I feel like I've been in battle, you know. This is work, right? This is fun, but sometimes you're like, wow, I really put in my whole heart here. Okay, so I'm going to dip the corner of that brush in pink. And I'm going to just do some fun. I'm going to go down around this side like that. And then a little around this side. You think of it as parentheses. Okay? You're putting like little parentheses. You can go lighter with this, you can go darker with this. Whatever your heart desires. So just, you want to try not to cover the main bubble, but what do? We do our best. You definitely don't want to do the whole bubble. You got to really stick to those two sides. And if it's going half on, half off the canvas, then you don't need to worry about it. Just do what you can. You can go over it multiple times. You can add more water so it's a little bit more faded and not as prominent, whatever you want to do. These are all colors, and you know why I put pink in here, right? You had to do pink. Like, this is the representation of Glenda. On this painting, we had to represent her somewhere, and we're doing it in the bubbles. And I think it's freaking perfect because that's how she travels in her bubble. Okay, so that's done. rinse my brush again, go back to clean water. I'm going to do some yellow, but I actually have to lighten some. So again, back to the white, find me a little corner. Find me a little corner here that I can make some light yellow. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot. Let me have the corner. It does need to be quite light though, otherwise it will compete with the green. Okay, that's my little corner. The kids in my classes would always say, Miss Cami, I need a new plate. There's no more room on my plate. Let me show you kids, there's always room on your plate. This is a great example of that. Okay, so rinse my brush, damp water, just a little bit of water, corner in yellow. And now we're going to like add just hints of yellow in there too. You can go exactly where the pink is. You can put it in another little spot if you want. I don't want to hide the pink. The pink's the star. But I'm just adding a little more color and fun and magic to our painting, our magical painting. See, I told you guys are gonna love bubbles. Okay, so now I'm gonna get my detail brush and I'm gonna get some white paint on there. I'm just going right in the center of my white. Look at this. I'm just like, get in there. Remember when I said contaminated paint? Look. I did good. I did real good. No contamination whatsoever. We're going to put our last little light bits in our bubbles. I'm going to do a little dash and then like a scoop. Dash and scoop. Over here, just a dash. Little bits of light. Every bubble is different. Again, don't hide your pink, your yellow. You're painting over a lot of this, and that's okay, but you don't want to completely cover up those fun colors while you're doing it. So just keep that in mind, because it's kind of easy to do, and to just like go right over it without even thinking about it. Suddenly it's gone. You're like, where did it go? Looking like fun bubbles. I love the broom, the bubbles, the fun, funky hat. It's my brush, the braid. Super fun. Rinsing that brush out. We're going to add, now that we're kind of finished here and everything's in, we're going to add what I like to call almost like a halo surrounding the bubbles, the broom, the hat, the dress. It brings attention to each of these, and it really just kind of brightens your painting. If you love your painting as it is, I want you to just sign off and just love it. But if you're thinking it's a little dark or you want to add some light, this is a really, really good way to do that, okay? And it's pretty simple. We're just going to put our main background color onto our brush, this is a struggle. Can you see I'm struggling? But it's fine. And then we're going to put some white on the corner of that brush. Okay, and we are going to go, let's start right here so you can see. We're going to go and just almost like, again, it's like a halo around these different things, around our subject, around the bubbles. And we're going to lighten it up and we're going to brighten it up. And you're going to step back and go, wow, that really did brighten my painting. It always does. It's a fun and easy way to do it. It just takes a minute, but it's worth it. Over these bubbles, I like to kind of almost ripple, you know, like when you drop a rock in the water and it has the ripple, because these bubbles, they're moving. They're moving around this canvas. Oh, I don't want to cover up my little hook here. I don't really know what happened, but I'm just going to take a damp brush and rub that off. It's a wonder anything is happening with how many colors and what a mess my plate is. Do as I say, not as I do. Keep your plate clean, guys, if you can. Around the bubble down here. I hope you can already see the light that this is adding to your painting, because it's just, it makes a difference. You can see this side versus this side. So it's kind of worth a little extra hassle to like come through and give it that extra sort of whimsical step. And I promise you, after this step, we can sign and you'll be so proud of yourself. Say, I freaking painted Elphaba and bubbles and broomsticks and vines. This had a little bit of everything in it, didn't it? These paintings too can be simplified. There are steps you can, omit from it, take out, make your own. And I hope you did, because that's one of my favorite parts, is just seeing how everybody translates their painting. We all see beauty differently. And so it's fun. It's a fun thing for me to see. So if you want to share your painting with me, I would love to see it. You can send it to us. You can tag us on social media. And we always just get so thrilled when we see those pictures come through of artists everywhere just making our paintings their own. It's the best. So this broom handle, you just kind of add here and there. It doesn't have to be a perfect, like outline by any means. You're just kind of, that's a lot of white. You're just kind of adding where it makes sense to you, or adding just kind of this bit of light all throughout it. Continue to load as needed. If you didn't have any background color left, or it dried out, or maybe you stopped painting and came back to it, and so you didn't have the background color left anymore, you can use just water if you want. Water and white paint. I've done it before. It's not my favorite with this particular technique for the background, but it does work, so you can use it. You can do it that way if you want. Okay, friends. Oh my goodness. I feel like that was quite a journey, and I'm so grateful you came on it with me. I feel like we did it. So many details, so many new fun techniques. I hope you loved it. I want you to know that no matter how it turned out, you took the time to create, and that is super special. And it goes a long ways when you just take a minute to create. I hope it relaxed you a little bit. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't love it, give yourself till tomorrow. I promise you, you'll feel better. Tomorrow, the next day is always my go-to success day for my paintings. Sometimes we need to sleep on it. Before we sign, we did put some glitter glaze in your paint kit. So if you have a paint kit from us, you will have our fun glitter glaze in it. And of course, we need to glitter these bubbles because Glenda is all things glitter and sparkle. So I'm going to go ahead and get my glitter out. Our glitter glaze looks a little bit like white paint, but it will dry clear. Make sure your brush is clean and mostly dry, and load that glitter glaze on there. And then we're just going to go over our bubbles. Make sure your bubbles are dry before you do this. I'm kind of tapping, making sure they're dry. If they're not dry, they will smear. And we don't want that. We just worked incredibly hard on this painting. I will be straight with you. I did not glitter anything but the bubbles, but I love glitter so much. I almost just went all in and glittered the dress and the hat too, to kind of make it stand out a little bit. But I didn't. I practiced self-control and just did the bubbles. But you can glitter whatever you want. The only tip I will give you is don't glitter everything, okay? Because then you won't be able to appreciate the little bit of sparkle. It'll just be sparkle everywhere. Let's sign our name, guys. I'm going to use my detail brush, and I'm going to go ahead and use black paint. You can use any color on your palette that you have, and you can sign anywhere on your painting, however you want. It's your piece. So take ownership of it. Always sign your painting. Thank you so much, you guys, for painting with me. I hope you had a good time. Please send us your pictures of your finished product. I would love to see how this turned out. Let me know if you love these bubbles as much as I do, and we will paint with you hopefully again soon. Bye-bye.